And now,
introducing the one, the only.
Let me introduce to you
lively talk with successful people, barely filtered. This is the Jenna Ben Show.
All right. Thank you for tuning into the Jenna Ben Show. I'm your host, Jenna Benamy, and with us today is UFC Welterweight with a record of 31-12, currently on a 2-fight win streak with multiple King of the Cage championships and 2 Performance of the Night awards. Tim, DirtyBird Means, how we doing?
I'm doing good. How's it going?
It's gone fantastic on my end. Been a super busy first half of the month, just getting all the stuff done before the holiday deadlines. But I really can't complain. I just got a new, have you heard of the Mirror?
The Mirror?
Yeah, that workout thing where like, you might have seen commercials where it's like a rectangular mirror and people are working out in the mirror and there's like a graphic that is pretty cool, actually. I mean, it's super expensive, but
new to me.
I'm gonna send you photos so you can see what I'm talking about. But I feel like because gyms are closed and I need some sort of an outlet, or gyms are closed for us regular people, like I figure this would be a good way to stay active. So
yeah, I haven't seen it. You're gonna have to catch me up.
I will. It's pretty cool. All right. So you're from Oklahoma, but you're currently in New Mexico. What's the COVID situation like where you're at?
As of, Thursday and Friday, we've been locked down, dining rooms, gyms, movie theaters. Everything's been locked down. Now that we're going into the Christmas holiday, I think they opened up Walmart to 300 people or something, but we're standing in line in front of the stores, no heaters. Yeah.
Wow.
The whole criteria is a little weird. They're telling us not to gather in groups, but we're standing in groups in the grocery store lines with no heaters, like I just said. But
yeah.
Criteria, the safety protocol is weird. It's all over the place, but hopefully everybody can stay safe and stay alive. I think we've known a lot of us that I don't think skeptical that it didn't exist, just how contagious it truly was or how deadly it was. I know a bunch of people that have caught it. They've gotten super sick, but I don't know anyone that's really died from it. So,
Thank God, yeah.
And it's crazy. It's with anything, we die of a lot of things, that go around. So, shutting down the economy and stuff, I would never want that job being a president or being a governor, having to make these types of decisions. Nobody's ever happy with the decision that's being made, if it's good or bad. And it's just so much push and pull. It's just a job I wouldn't want to have to do. And hats off to the people that are currently doing it.
Amen. I agree with that. All right. So what's changed for you this year? We've been locked down pretty much since like March, February for some people. It's been kind of a bumpy road for me in terms of like, I didn't think it was going to last this long. I thought, all right, the, Dash Radio headquarters will be shut down for a couple of months. Maybe I'll be fine. I wasn't really reorienting myself to accommodate remote interviews. And so it was just one more week. And then I was like, wait, this thing's not going away. So then I had to build my own studio. So, what about you? What was your biggest change?
We had a meeting with Dana White early when the UFC fights had stopped, saying that we were coming back for the first shows. I don't exactly remember when the first show started happening, but he was saying then, prepare for 24 months, get ready. He's on the economic panel with President Trump and that stuff. So he said, just be ready for it to take a long time. Let's figure out safety protocols and, our testing and testing the training partners that are coming into the gym so we can keep families safe. So we had a good idea of where we would be at today, going into the end of the year. At the same time, we've been doing a good job just at our gym alone, testing fighters because, I lock my doors and train by myself and we bring fighters in, but we're all testing because I think the bottom line is we don't want to take things back to our families. I have training partners that have young children and, my kids are running around here somewhere in the back, probably playing Monopoly, but we don't want to put our families at jeopardy because we do have a disease it's a real thing, and
yeah.
it's I got an Aunt Lucy now that, she's having blood clots in her lungs and things of that nature. And she's recovered now and trying to get better, but she still has a long route. But we want to make sure that not just ourselves are safe, but our families are safe. And anything else that would be new along that line is not having to cut weight for Thanksgiving or cut weight for Christmas, in 11 years. So, I got a couple beers over here now and, food on the table that we're getting ready to jump into. But, you know, as crazy as the year has been, you know, I have a home and a roof over my head and a fireplace keeping us warm. And I have a car to drive so I don't have to walk. So with the bad, there's a lot of good this year.
Mm-hmm. You had posted something about New Mexico having the highest suicide rate recently.
Right.
What's going on there?
You know, I think we've been top of the food chain for many years when it comes to suicide. And I only speak up about suicide because I had a friend, Mikey, that I saw him in the gym that night and, you know, was trying to talk to my buddy. And, you know, he's like, oh, no, it's not a big deal. You know, I thought you looked tired. He's like, no, I've got a lot of schooling going on. And he just made it sound like a real issue, you know. And, you know, that next morning, you know, I have 40 text messages and phone calls that, you know, Mikey had left. And I'm like, where'd Mikey go? You know, and they're like, oh, he hung himself, you know. And
oh my God.
That just really hit it home. So I've gotten in these programs and these suicide programs and try to realize the signs. And there's never a warning. There never is. So, you know, we get mean fans on social media when I post that type of stuff, especially from like even the hometown of the state, saying that we need to do our part in the community. You do any type of research on me, I'm definitely deep in my community and in my state and in the schools here and talking. And I do my part to stand out and speak up and ask the questions that nobody wants to ask. And, you know, it's just something that, like you said, the question goes back to what is going on. And we don't know. We've been top of the food chain with suicides and crap property crimes and car theft. It's just, you know, it's turned into just be the lifestyle of New Mexicans in New Mexico. And, we don't get no real help from our leaders, and we don't get no push into the right direction of how to help each other. And, you know, mental illness is a thing that's not going away. We need to learn how to deal with it and deal with adversity. But, you know, we're the most prescribed country in the world with antidepressants and things. And, you know, even now with COVID and these things that are going around, is we always look for the victim. We always look for the victim in the situation, and we don't deal with the adversity that comes our way. So we have these seniors that are going through this deal with COVID, and, you know, we just got to be able to, they have that saying where, you know, life hands you lemons, you need to make lemonade. And I'm more along the lines, if you don't like lemonade, throw the shit away and get something you like, you know, and find a new route. So, there's always an answer. We just have to figure it out. And suicide and these things are very high in our state, and we need to figure it out for one another, or talk to one another. And I think that the whole COVID deal is separate us from being able to communicate and talk and rely on one another and rely on your neighbor and, you know, common human decency. So we got to care a little bit more and figure it out.
Wow. Well, I got the right guest on today's show because we're going to get deep, you know, here on the Jenna Ben Show. I like to dig into my guest stories and, you know, kind of how you came up, what you were like as a kid, and then roll our way into your time in the UFC, but then also dig deep behind the scenes and find out what's going on up here and dealing with all the pressures. You guys have, in my opinion, one of the most pressure-filled jobs you could possibly have, and we'll get into that. But first, I want to go way, way back to when you were a kid. What were you like as a kid? What was your personality?
You know, I went through different marriages and stuff with my mother. You know, she was married to guys that, you know, were all godly or whatever in front of people. You know, when the doors were closed or whatever, they were abusive and, you know, putting you against the wall or whatever. But life got good. My mom married a man named Chris Thetford. He came into my life when I was, you know, 10 or 11 years old. And I didn't really need a father figure. I needed a male friend at that time. And we grew up dirt poor, but always had food on the table. And, you know, even my wife at that time, my stepdad was a guy named Gary Lackey, and he actually worked for my wife's father at that time. So I've known my wife and their family for a long time. So what kind of kid I was probably a snot-nosed brat that had trust issues and some other things. But, you know, I had an anger problem and things I had to learn to deal with. But got to meet some cool people along the line that helped straighten me out and put me on the straight and narrow. So small town kid that likes to fish and hunt.
Okay. Were you a bully or were you bullied or neither?
I think all the above. I think I was bullied and I let my anger get the best of me, and then I looked for people to fight, even though I should have probably been fighting my bully. So
Right.
I was probably a little bit of both. You know, I didn't mess with kids based on their shoes or their clothes or whatever, but would just fight loudmouth kids. And, you know, in reality, I should have went and fought the kid that was probably messing with me. You know, it should have been the formula to that plan.
We never deal with the thing head on, right? It's always like it's cause and effect. So then, you know,
Yeah, it is. And when you get older, you realize just what that is, you know. But you know, funny now we see the guy around. He's a family. He's a cousin somewhere along the lines to my wife's side of the family. But you know, we see him at dances and stuff, and we say things that, you know, things come up like, "Oh, hey, it's great to see you," and you never actually say the things that are on your mind, you know. So I can just say that we both grown up, we both have kids, and we both have bills to pay.
Mm, interesting. Well, maybe one day over a beer, you'll be able to kind of communicate to him your thoughts. I wonder how he is as a parent now, having been the bully, you know?
I don't know, but I hope we're not talking over beers because that never goes well. Not in my past. So hopefully we're playing volleyball or something.
There we go. You had some trouble with the law. You've obviously got your shit together now, but rocky childhood led to what? What happened there?
Testosterone, and you know, I got a little bit taller. You know, thought I had all the answers, even though, you know, my stepdad, who I consider my real dad, he's just somebody that I needed at the time. Told me all the stories about I didn't want to go to jail and I didn't want to learn these things from a jail cell. So, you know, I was out one night partying, hanging out with friends, and I wind up getting shot. And I really didn't drink or party much at the time or do drugs or nothing like that. And that injury led to painkillers and morphine patches and things like that. And as long as I said I was injured or hurt, they would keep prescribing me the Vicodins and the morphine and stuff. And then they took it cold turkey one day, and then I moved to, you know, cocaine and meth. And I stayed in that track for, you know, a good 4 years, you know, where that time period in my life is just kind of a big blur. You know, I'm carrying a gun in my pants and wearing a bulletproof vest places, burning bridges. My word wasn't good. You know, I had been given chance after chance, but ultimately just didn't want to listen or want to grow or learn. And then, you know, I get sent to a magistrate court here in Moriarty where we're at. And I had lied to Judge Jones, I don't know, 50 times or so, you know, and he's a very smart guy, smarter than I give him credit for. And, you know, they wind up sending me to prison on misdemeanors and sitting in the county jail. When I'm looking in that little tin mirror, I didn't recognize my face or recognize who I was.
Wow.
And I knew that I needed, well, let me back up. They winded up handing me clothes to wear. And, you know, they're recycled clothes. Other inmates had worn them or whatever. And the white boxers they give me have like pee stains on them or stains.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, I'm not wearing those. And they're like, well, you don't have a choice. You have to. You're going to prison. I'm like, I'm not wearing those. Got a little scuffle or whatever. So then they took me naked and put me in holding, you know, or in seg for the whole day until I wanted to put the clothes on. I was in there cold and without a pillow and thought, I'll wear the clothes.
Yeah.
You know, I was at the time one of 4 New Mexicans at the time that went to prison on misdemeanors. They didn't have a felony, but I had done enough I deserved it. And I went to go learn. And I sat looking through the prison wall at the freeway and seeing life move on. And I was just stuck in that bubble. So I sat there, called my nephew. My parents told him where I was at. And I just felt like I was poisoning my family. And the first word in corrections is the Department of Corrections. And I used the department to correct myself. went back to my gym and my coaches that I had known prior to going to jail, rebuilt the bridges, you know, paid back money that I owed, fixed relationships that I had truly messed up. And, you know, I'm even in the same town that I got real good at running from cops, real good. And to sit here where I went to the sheriff's graduating ceremony, was a guest speaker, and looking at some of these veteran cops that were the ones chasing me, and to hear the kind things they had to say about me, and I wasn't on their radar no more, not being that guy that if I wasn't part of the solution, I was part of the problem, you know. And I didn't want to be the guy that was poisoning my family. And heck, I don't know how many family members we have in jails and prisons or drug abuse or whatever. I didn't want to be that family member and lead my nephews down that road. And I got out of prison, or I went back and forth with, you know, kicking the prescription drug thing was a little harder than I anticipated. I didn't think that would be difficult, you know, and I wind up having a pretty good addiction. And then I went back and forth in the meth life and the drug life and the party scene and alcohol. And, you know, it just spiraled out of control. So, you know, in that time I would get out for 2 weeks, go back for 30 days, get out for 30 days, go back for 60 days or whatever. And it lasted until I got out of prison in 2009. So it started when I was 18. I got out in 2009. And, you know, I didn't look back after, mainly after my nephew answered the phone and my parents stopped lying for me.
Wow. Yeah, you had the whole family involved, as it often happens. Okay. So how did MMA come into the mix? Like, when did you start training? And then when did you start to take it seriously?
Oh, I'd already started fighting well before that. And that was kind of the problem that started was I was starting to fight, get a good reputation. And there was a fight organization in Albuquerque called Fight World at the time that we did it in downtown Albuquerque. And I developed a name real quick as a scrappy guy. But what started happening was I started getting those bandwagon guys that were supposed to be my good friends, you know, that started patting me on the back. Oh, you're the champ, you're this, you're that. And then I stopped going to practice, you know, because I'd already built the mentality of being a champion in this. So I stopped going to practice and started only partying. And I started taking fights and losing. I think like my first pro fight was against Spencer Fisher, who's an absolute killer. And then I fought another UFC veteran in Luke Cadillo. And I wasn't training at all. Matter of fact, you know, I think I ran like half a mile before I fought Luke Cadillo. I'd been shot. I had gauze still stuck in my leg. We didn't have commissions and doctors then. And ultimately, it wasn't really about a win. I just needed to vent frustrations and keep my head on saying, because, you know, the guys that shot me I'm wearing bulletproof vests and guns in my pants because I want to find and retaliate. So the fight wasn't about winning. It was just about centering my anger. Or at least I thought. And I went there and took an ass whooping, and that sucked. But you know, I think I started training in 2002 and started fighting professionally in 2003. And then I started hanging with the wrong crowds and, you know, not blaming myself for situations that were going down and blaming other people and pointing the finger and not taking my responsibility in situations.
Okay, so fast forward, somehow you end up taking it real seriously and becoming the King of the Cage champion twice in two divisions, or I should say in two divisions, and then you defended your title multiple times successfully. So how did that happen? There was a shift in you, obviously.
Yeah, I came back in 2009, went right to the gym. You know, I had a buddy at the time that we kind of split ways now, but he talked me back into getting in the gym, and I needed some money. So I went back and talked to Tom and talked to Arlene, and they didn't take me serious at all. They were putting me in like regular fighting class or regular boxing classes with everyday Joes. And I was kind of showing up being a bully in those classes. Like, I want out of this class. I want you to take me serious. And they made me earn it. They made me earn getting on the fight team and made me earn my time in and before I got a fight. And then I wind up, you know, fighting in King of the Cage multiple times. Like, I fought for the junior welterweight title. Then I fought for a super fight world title. Then I fought for the lightweight world title. So once I really got, and not just winning fights, like I was having to show up for practice, you know, and I think that's where people lose out on, oh, you can show up and fight. It can go either way. But if you're not putting your practice in, you're not really showing up focused and ready.
Yeah.
And let's just back up, there's younger guys listening. I didn't win any fight not training. I might have got a paycheck that was $200 or whatever at that time, but I didn't do well in those fights. So when I started like dedicating myself and, you know, eating right and doing what I was supposed to right, it changed everything. And then, like, you know, I had 2 daughters out there that were in another state that I got custody of and brought them back to New Mexico. Those things is what I wanted to do. And it was weird. Like, I'd be sitting and, like, we go back to the jail time stuff, you know, the Christmas holidays commercials would come on where you're seeing the mom baking cookies with her kids and that type of stuff, with a Christmas tree, like over here. Those are the things I wanted to have memories of, you know? So
Yeah.
it just changed thinking in general, and it made the fighting part easy.
You had a goal to work towards at that point, something to live for.
Yeah, I think once I had something that I cared about more than myself, I think it just changed everything. When I had things to watch grow and blossom, and like my daughters are getting huge right now. When I got them 5 years, they were tiny and they were easy to deal with. Now they're on a whole different level and they're huge. They're almost staring me in my eyes, you know? It's like,
Well, how old are they?
You know? I have a 13 and 11-year-old, you
Okay.
know? So
full grown personalities too.
Yes, it's escalated quickly. So, but it's awesome. Like, my family has changed me, and where I was at when I was a wild, reckless guy. I'm not going to say I would take those days back or change anything about how I got here, because it would change just so many things where it's good now. Just I try to pay attention now.
All right. So King of the Cage led to UFC, or how did you get your UFC contract for the first time?
I was about to quit fighting. You know, I'd had my 3rd world title with King of the Cage, and I barely cleared 6,000 for the entire year.
Wow. And you were how old?
I was 25, I think, I believe.
Okay.
So I talked to a buddy, and they were going to get me on with the local fire department here, and I was getting ready to kind of shift onto that because I didn't have felonies. So there was some things I could still qualify for and still get done. I needed a little bit of extra schooling and education since I had dropped out of school when I was a sophomore. So there was things that I was starting to go down that path. And then not 10 days later, like 3 days later after I fought for the lightweight world title with King of the Cage, the UFC called me on a 10 days notice fight to fight a guy named Bernardo Magalhães.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a lot of credentials, and I went in there and just whooped him. So got a contract. Just I was at the wrong weight class at 155 pounds. You know, I was needing to change that. But we took the fights that were given at that time. I worked with Joe Silva, and, you know, it panned out. Here we are.
And here we are. Okay, so what was your reaction to getting the UFC contract? I mean, you had started to take fighting really seriously. You're getting all these titles. The UFC is the most elite promotion in the world. I know this was some time ago. This was, if you're saying you were 25, this was 11 years ago. So we're talking about 2009.
Yeah.
You made it into the UFC in 2012 though, right? Or is that?
Yeah, 2012.
Okay.
I might've been a little older.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Okay. So then you get your contract. I mean, is this like the biggest moment of your life, or are you just looking to make more money?
I was looking to make a payment, you know, or pay my bills and not pay rent anymore. So the thing that changed my mind is we're talking, they paid me $6,000 for an entire year, and the UFC sent me a $10,000 show and $10,000 win bonus. So we're talking $20,000 to what's up, Amari? How are you, buddy? Oh, I know. So we're talking $20,000 to get in a fist fight on something that I just did the entire time, fought 6 times in a year for $6,000. So I was like, all right. I put down my Oreos and my I lost you, soon to be snacks.
Yeah.
Can you see me now? My kid keeps grabbing the chips over here. No more chips, Lily. But yeah, so to answer the question, you know, I'd give it another try for $20,000.
Okay, you know what's interesting to me is, wow, in 2012 they're offering fighters the same amount they're offering in 2020.
That's right. Yeah, that hasn't changed at all. You know,
Oh.
and you see them doing these big pay cuts, and there are these big fighter cuts and stuff. wonder where the company's going to be when this is all said and done. Because if we're doing economics and looking at it from that nature, they got to be taking a hit, not having fans in the stands, even though they have contracts with the TV organizations. But being with a company as long as I have, I get to look at those numbers, and that's how I know my work now is I get to negotiate my contracts by seeing how many people are tuning in when my fights are coming on. So you get to learn these things about yourself and about what you're worth, and you need to know those things about what you're worth. Without the fighter, there isn't a show. Fighter's the top of the food chain. They need to know that about themselves. And the bad thing with that being said is we have a local guy right here in the same town. He doesn't fight for money. These types of guys will take $200 and $300 and $400 just to fight, just to wear a Reebok shirt. And that puts all of us back, because guess what? Some of us do fight for the money. We're prize fighters. I want a prize at the end of the day to do this. And when you have guys like that, that'll just wear the Reebok shirt and take a $500 payment, why wouldn't the UFC cut guys and pick these other guys up that are, I don't even consider them as talented, but all they have to do is put on a show, and the UFC is a brand, and that's all they got to worry about.
Right. Right. And I come across some of those guys, there's just so much hype. Everybody wants to be a part of the UFC because it implies that you've made it. And then the sad part to me, when I was reading about the cuts that they're making, these guys, you guys, this is it. This is like your career path. This is what you've invested the majority of your life in. So like you make it to the UFC. At that point, you think, okay, I can breathe now. I made it in. I'm good. Now I just got to perform. But no, you're not safe, and typically, you arrange your contracts, you negotiate your contracts. It's what, like, 3, 4 fight contracts typically. Yeah. And so if you either get cut prematurely or they don't get renewed, that's scary. It's a really tough profession.
It's a very hard profession, and for somebody like me, it's a high school dropout, and I put all my poker chips into this. It was either going to happen or not happen. I was moving to something else. I was not going to think about fighting anymore. But with that being said, it was the thing that I enjoy to do. I like getting up and punching the time clock and ultimately doing what I love to do. That's why I love being an American. We're free, or free enough. We can go down that whole rabbit hole. But I'm happy to get to do what I want to do. And, I remember teachers telling me fighting was going to get me nowhere. And I've gotten to go all over the world doing this stuff. So not to say that I'm happy they were wrong, but I'm pretty happy they were wrong. So with that being said is, some of these guys have to sign these contracts because they do need to get money to pay some bills or pay the IRS or whatever, so they might not be as consenting as they want to be. They get into fight and be in the UFC on TV, but they might have to because that's how they make a little bit of their change.
We saw that with that kid Max earlier this year, Max Rosekoff or something. He got into the cage, and I don't know what his reasons were for entering the UFC, but it was his first fight. I think he took it on really short notice. You know what I'm talking about? And then he ended up,
he had trouble on the bench or something, or on the stool where he didn't want to continue or something.
And his coach was pressuring him. And then he was like, I'm not doing it. And then he got released. Ultimately.
Yeah. And he actually got a bunch of backlash from fans and even Dana, or I'm not sure if Dana was on there, but a lot of fans were being pretty hateful. And, being an athlete and being at this level, even watching football and baseball or whatever, I'm never real hard on the athlete. There's so many things going on, and you still have to compete at a high level. And, I call out a lot of media guys just because they're constantly expecting the athlete to be better, but you're reading these guys' papers or whatever, their write-ups or their journalism, and they're spelling names wrong, and they're getting facts wrong, and their pronunciation is not very good. So it's like, well, you expect us to be better at what we do, and we expect you to do the same thing. And I just think the athletes they don't have a real fair end of the deal. Like you watch somebody on TV, like the position that they're in right now on the ground looks super easy, and you don't realize the amount of energy and tiredness and how hot it is in there on the mat. So give them a little bit of love. High five a fighter or an athlete when you see them.
Yeah, I'm into that. Give a little love. Okay, so you make it into the UFC for the first time in 2012. You won your first 2 fights, and then you lost your next 2, released from the UFC. And then you kick butt against your next 2 opponents in Legacy. and then you get re-signed to the UFC. All of this within less than a year. What the hell? That is a lot of movement.
Yeah, I got a lot of curveballs in life. There's always a lot of change. It's great. You can't let things sit stagnant. If you're too comfortable with things, then life is boring, or you're just not doing something right. But I talked to Joe Silva. He let me fight Masvidal, and I thought arguably I won that fight. I outstruck him off my back. He had takedowns. He shot 12 times. No one shot that many times. Masvidal's never shot that many takedowns on anybody in his career. So, I outstruck him off my back. Felt like it was a close decision. Takedowns won him the fight, but he didn't do nothing with them. Then I went and fought Danny Castillo on like 8 days notice, and again, I needed the money. I told Joe, hey, I'm not going to be able to make the weight. He asked me what I could get to. I told him I could probably get to 60. And Joe, he was cool about it or whatever, told me, hey, do the best you can. And I got there, missed weight, and they wind up cutting me. But in the process of talking to Joe before they cut me, was like, hey, I'll let you move up to 170, but you're going to sit on the roster. You'll sit on the sidelines. I would fight again in October. It was like a 6 or 9 month thing. It's like 6 or 8 months, something like that. Or I could go fight in Legacy at 170, see how I did, and then bring me back. So we did just that. I went and fought in Legacy, had turnaround fights right away because I'm coming out of King of the Cage where I'm fighting 6-7 times a year. I get to the UFC and I'm fighting barely at all. Can't get a full fight camp. And, the 8-day notice fights, if you look at a lot of my fights, they come on short notice, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, things like that. So then he let me go fight. And then he did exactly that. He brought me back in 6 months, and I took another late notice fight against Magny. And don't get knocked down in the first round, I win that fight. But, got to throw the poker chips in, go all in, and get back to the drawing board and try to fix things.
Magny has been on the show a couple of times. He had his own segment, and then I just brought him back for my 100th show reunion. What are your thoughts on Neil as a fighter?
I think he's a good fighter. I think he's long and presents a lot of problems. He moves a lot, has great cardio. Outside of that, he's a veteran and a military guy, and he's a good person. So I guess if I'm losing to people, I don't mind losing to those guys.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, I love it when people are nice to each other. Okay, so before we move on, walk us through what was going on with you internally throughout all that commotion. Hold on, I just want the sirens. But something must be really happening.
It feels like it's on both ends here, Sirens on your end, my kids grabbing chips and running around.
We're making it work.
Yeah, and it's really quiet. It's got me a little nervous. Everyone's doing good. I see you back there.
So walk us through what was going on with you throughout all of that commotion. There was a lot going on in terms of movement, right? But were you affected by the fact that you got released from the most elite promotion, or was it just about getting back to making the most money you can?
Well, in those 2 losses, I fought 4 really good guys, and then lost to Masvidal and Castillo in very competitive fights. So it wasn't like I went in there and got blown out the water and, was taken out on a stretcher or whatever. But then it was also about needing to pay bills and feed myself. So Legacy offered just that. I got to go to work with Mick Maynard, got to know another very, very good promoter and his wife. And ultimately just keep sharpening my skills because, man, I missed such a long time and then came back in the blink of an eye and was back in the radar immediately. So it was just the whole thing was a learning process. And with the adversity stuff, I'd been through so much stuff as a kid. We can sit here and just dwell in that and the things I've gone through with my mom, which she'll sit there and say that she was this innocent saint. She's crazy as shit. Love my mom. Love you, Mom. She's crazy. And I think with just that adversity, it just kept my nose on the road I needed to be on. And it just it showed me that I still had goals and I had determination. And, I had a lot of things that I was still working towards. I have a siren over here now.
What is happening today?
It's being alert in our story.
Okay. No, I get that. And also Joe kind of made it clear that you'd be back. It's not like you were released and you're like, shit, I got to really work double as hard now to prove to them that I actually do belong in the UFC. And I can think of, I won't say who, but one particular fighter who fought for the UFC, kind of slacked off, thought he made it big time, was partying a ton, just, was like that feeling of, all right, I made it, and then didn't perform. And now is doing everything in his power to get back in. And it's like part of his identity that he can't let go, It's tough.
And I think I'd gotten a lot of respect from Joe because, when I saw him at the fight, I didn't go up and say, hey, sorry or nothing like that. I owned what I did, what had happened, even when I saw Castillo, I didn't apologize for missing the weight. I told him what I could do, and I did the best with getting as close as possible and going from there. But with that being said, if without adversity, we wouldn't be sitting here talking today, without the hard trials and tribulations. And that's from day one to now. There's a way to deal with things. And, if we can't communicate and work things through, or we're get to a roadblock and we're not trying to find the answers no more, if I choose to stay down, that's the only way I lose. And that's the only way any of us lose, is if we choose not to get up. And that has just been my philosophy since day one.
Yeah. And that's what I respect so much about fighters as I get to know you guys. You're really strong people psychologically too, like the rest of us, when we go through, I'll speak for myself, when I experience some sort of setback or quote failure, it's kind of, sometimes it makes you feel like, well, should I even keep doing this? And it's pretty easy to quit. But you guys deal with so much, as you say, adversity, really on a daily basis. I mean, you go to your practices, and a good practice is a day that you don't get injured, and so you're dealing with all these like physical ailments, and then you got to deal with the psychological and emotional pressure of you, family, friends, your corner, the public, social media that goes, anytime a fight gets announced, you're taking bullets. You know what I mean? Like people are coming at you, and sometimes it's for no good reason. Sometimes it's because they have this allegiance to your opponent, and it's a really tough job to be a fighter and be literally locked in a cage for 15 to 25 minutes. And then all the stuff that happens beforehand and after. So I'm curious, break down for us sort of the roller coaster of emotions that go into winning versus losing a fight.
We'll just use the last fight as an example. Saturday morning, I'm warming up. I'm trying to get the normal workout that I do, getting lactic acid out of my body after a hard weight cut. And last kick in the practice, I'm sweating. I throw a kick and I hurt my knee right before I went to the fight to fight Mike Perry. And as the day went on, the pain moved up from my knee into my lower back, and I can hardly bend over and touch my toes. So we get in the fight, and then Mike Perry hits a body lock early in the fight, and it's like when you light a match on fire, it's instantly hot, and it's shooting pain all the way down my leg. And if we back up a little bit, that morning when I hurt my knee, I didn't even say nothing to Coach JJ or Coach Tom. It wasn't something that was going to fix the matter at that point. And I wasn't pulling out of the fight because it wasn't that type of injury. As the fight went on, we get to about the third round, and I could feel my back locking up, and it's wanting to cramp and like spaz. I can feel my legs. I just get up as Tom's talking. I walk right to the middle of the cage because I'm going to play a game on him. I'm not tired. I'm going to see you across the cage. I'm not sure if it worked. It worked enough for me to where I could get through the round. And then the very busy round, we threw down the last round, but it's just that little psychological edge that I get my own mind frame in. And, I was able to get my body to perform and get out there with a win and come home and see the family and all that good stuff.
Wow. That's crazy. I was going to ask you about him missing weight. He was over by 5.5 pounds. The limit, the welterweight limit is 170. He was at 175.5. Your previous fight too, he missed weight by 4.5 pounds. I mean, what's going on in your mind when you see this? Are you just thinking, great, more money? Or are you thinking, damn, that's going to throw a wrench into the game, or you're not affected?
Yeah, I'm clapping my hands, free money. And then, maybe when Lariano Staropoli missed it, he didn't make a great amount of money, but when Perry missed, it's like $27,000. So it's like, you don't have to take me serious. And I'm used to fighting big guys in the gym all the time. He's talking about he has me right where he wants me and this and that. And then I even felt bad where I went and called my wife and talked to coach. I'm like, he's had a baby on the way. I'm just going to give him back his money. I didn't come here for his money. I want my own money. And then he started being an asshole and kind of a douche. And I was like, I'm going to keep your money. It's cool for me, but, and then just talking to Coach JJ, he asked me, well, would he do it for you? And I'm like, well, I don't think so. So, it's so like you said before, there's so much going on, and it's easy to watch the fighters on fight night, but where I stand, I know everything that went into that heartache, win or lose. Whether you're super happy or if you lost and you're sad, but you're fixing your car to get to practice, you're counting change to get gas in your car to get to practice, you're making your last sandwich that's in your cupboard because you're short on food, or you're living in the living room on an air-up mattress because your heaters don't work and your fireplace sends all the heat through the chimney. It's colder than hell. I just know that it was trials and tribulations. So I try to keep my head on track by knowing life is going to throw us curveballs.
God, I have so much I want to talk to you about. Oh, do you want to come say hi?
Oh,
is she camera ready? Hi.
My girlfriend on the side, Brenda.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
Hi there. So, okay. So are you your girlfriend or wife, or you were kidding?
I'm his.
Yeah, she's my wife, but I'm not kidding. We've had so much stuff going on this interview.
His battery almost went low.
All right. So I actually reached out to Mike Chiesa to see what he had to say about you, because I saw that you're following him, he's following you. And I'm like, all right, they're probably friends. And, Mike was on my reunion show. I've interviewed him before. He's doing his whole analyst thing. So Mike said, oh man, Tim is a solid dude. I always enjoy catching him in passing. Hell of a fighter and a good man. Best nickname in MMA as well.
Mike is nice. I like Mike. And I feel the exact same way, except minus his nickname. I don't know his nickname.
Maverick.
Maverick. It's cool, but he's a great guy. And, he's just good people. And, you try to, outside of the fights, I don't know him other than when we run into each other in passing and stuff. But, just like Neil, he's a great guy when you run into him, super focused and just a hell of a fighter.
I love that. Now, how did you get your nickname DirtyBird?
I wish I had a cool story, but I had a bad haircut going into a state wrestling tournament.
No.
And my mom had done my hair for me, and it was supposed to be like all white with like these red highlight deals on top.
Yeah.
We didn't get that. It was more like a bowl cut. Fluffy bangs. It looked bad, and the teammate said I looked like a dirty bird, and I hated that name for the longest time, and it stuck. And I was like, screw it, I'll just own it, I'll keep it, and just show everyone I like it, and maybe they'll stop calling me that. And yeah, here we are.
And here we are, stuck with it for life now.
For life.
All right, so I also asked Uriah Hall about you. We're buds. He has also been on my show a bunch of times in the reunion show. And so I texted him earlier today, and then he said, Tim Means is a cool guy. What I like about him, he just keeps it simple and catches you with shots where you didn't think he would catch you. Very unique style.
Well, I like Uriah Hall's style as well. Again, another guy I know behind the scenes with fights, and just somebody that every time we run into each other, we have a good conversation. And, it's another family guy, another guy that's there working hard and having to fight his own demons. That's usually we're our own worst enemies. And, Uriah Hall's fighting that same guy that I have to fight myself. And he's starting to shine with his mental toughness and his fortitude.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a great win for him against Anderson Silva, even though that was that fight kind of got him up here just because that was his idol. you know, and
Yes.
someone he looked up to so much. And then he, you know, he fought him, and then Anderson had one fight left in his contract, but was released prematurely
Yeah.
after that fight. So kind of tough, but you know, I'm happy for him and I wish Anderson well. Who are you close to in the fight world? Like who are your people that we might know?
No one in the fight game. I follow people that I'm cordial with, and you know, I respect on the normal life basis. You know, not because they're good fighters or whatever. I don't have like a favorite fighter. But the only time I've been starstruck is I think I fought Sabah Hamasi in Vegas, and when I jumped up on the cage to, you know, yell obscenities at the fans, there was Gordon Ramsay, the chef, there, and I was like, "Oh, I know you!" And you know, he followed me on social media, and that's probably the few times I've been starstruck. But you know, what's cool about running into all the fighters is I built a name for myself, and I get a lot of respect from all the guys. Like, you know, simply like Yoel Romero running through the crowd to give me a hug and, you know, tell me he likes my fights, and Uriah Hall, you know, Uriah Faber. It feels good getting that recognition from your coworkers. It's a little bit different than most jobs because we can punch our coworkers in the face if we're in the same weight class.
Yeah.
But I respect everybody on the roster. The trials and tribulations we go through as fighters, we all have that in common, and, you know, hugs to all of them, high fives to all of them.
You know, I was asking all the guys on the reunion show, is there anyone like on your exclusion list that you wouldn't fight? And they all kind of had their people, and usually it was their teammates, but they all agreed that if you get to the champion level, if you're fighting for the title, then it's like, all right, then we'll do it for the money, you know?
Right. And, you know, that's a big reason why, like, me and Donald Cerrone live like 5 miles from each other over here. And, you know, when I see him, we're cordial, and he's invited me to his place a couple times. But it's the fight game. I'm here to make as much money as I possibly can and leave. And I don't want anything like that to get in the way. I have a few guys that have been signed recently to the UFC. I probably, like, same thing. I wouldn't fight those guys because we're managed by the same company. But guys like Cerrone and stuff, they're bringing so many guys that come and train at high level or high altitude here. I try to stay on my own side of the train tracks, not because there's any type of disrespect, but they're just good ass fighters, and I have to make sure it's not a sparring session.
Interesting. Niko Price was on the show as well. You guys fought, and he actually took that fight. What was that experience like?
Damn, I was beating Nico's ass. You know, had him knocked out a couple times, and, you know, I got overzealous, and I thought I had him hurt. I heard that 10-second count towards the end of the round, had him hurt, knocked him into the fence where I thought he was going to walk down the fence, but he bounced off the fence as I rushed in. I threw a lazy jab trying to set up a big left hand, and got put on my butt. It got listed as a knockout, but I remember the entire thing. I remember my legs snapping. I remember the hammer fist. And I remember the doctor talking to me right away, asking me about my head and all these questions. I was like, hey, man, I think I broke my leg. And then he, like, looked down. I remember his little glasses he had on, and all of a sudden I couldn't even see his pupils in his glasses. So I tried to sit up, and, you know, hats off to Niko. But, you know, it's one of those things where mental fortitude comes back in, you know, and I've had to really learn to be patient in my fights and take my time and dissect guys, you know, because everyone at this level can stop you in a heartbeat. So
Yeah.
got a lot of respect for Niko. He's another family guy with, you know, 5 or 6 babies and, you know, a wife and everything. So,
Yeah.
you know, kudos to them. And, like, we could even talk about, you know, Rodriguez when I fought him in February. You know, I had a lot of people wanting me to appeal the fight from a punch to the back of the head that he hurt me with. And then, you know, he took that fight on short notice, and he made $50,000 for stopping me. I would have appealed, and he would have lost that money to his family and stuff. I wouldn't feel good about that. He was the better guy that night, and it is what it is. Learn to live and move on, and, you know, get some damn wins another way. But taking money out of people's mouths when they've earned it, it's not my cup of tea.
Niko Price was your only knockout within the UFC, and you're not one to get knocked out a ton. I was looking at your record. you are actually quite the knockout artist. 19 out of your 31 wins are by knockout. And then you've only been knocked out twice, once in the UFC by Niko Price. Okay, so what does this say about you as a fighter? Because you're strong on the ground too. So, but knockouts are just your thing. I mean, you like to put on a show, or what is it?
It just happens, coaching them, try to get me to use my ground game. And I've started shooting more takedowns lately, last couple of years, actually. I had a big double leg on Niko in that fight and chose to let him up instead of staying on his head, staying top heavy. It's just that hillbilly DNA. We get in fist fights in the trailer park, and I got to learn to be a prize fighter and a smart prize fighter. So I made a mistake in that Niko Price fight, and I paid dearly for it. So if it shows me anything in this life, or in this fight game, I have to adapt. You have to be learning something every single day, and you can't take things for granted. Yeah. That was my worst injury by far. I think I had a TKO loss to I think Luke Cadillo, but I told you I had a gunshot wound in my leg full of staples, and I threw a head kick and ripped all them staples out of my leg. So when I dropped, he started beating my ass. And, it's funny now. At the time, it was not funny, but yeah. it is. I try to learn somewhere. Even in my losses, I'm winning and I'm learning. So, without that mentality, we wouldn't be talking today.
What fight are you most proud of?
I would say my first world title in King of the Cage. I fought. Yeah, I'm real proud of my mother-in-law. She's good people, and she's cooking. But that fight right there showed me that I didn't bounce to another city. I came right back to the city, the little town I was getting in trouble with, and made it right. And showed everybody that just because I was being a shit stick didn't mean I needed this. I didn't show I had to make those same decisions. So winning that first world title in King of the Cage, which is a good company, a good resume to have on your record. That was the one that stood out the most. It was I fought Bobby Green, who's another UFC guy. I went his hometown, stopped him in front of his hometown.
That's a big one.
Yeah, he wore a chicken suit out, making fun of me. It was fantastic. So wow. The fight was great. It was grueling. It was rough. It was mean. And it just showed me when I focus and put my mindset to something that I can achieve things. And I ran with that. So beating a guy up that wears a chicken outfit to come see you that was a crazy fight. We got after it, but making him quit on a stool in front of his friends and family was what I wanted to do. And it was the goal when I took the fight. So, and everything before that, like we talked, everything before that, all the trials and tribulations, the counting the change to make it to practice, and, eating a couple times a day, which doesn't make the weight cut hard when you ain't got a lot of food around. Fixing your car 2 and 3 and 4 times a week. Everything about it was hard to get to that point. And that point, that little moment right there made everything great.
Those moments made you the person that you are today. And I bet you appreciate things so much more. And I bet it makes you a wonderful father too, to be able to pass on lessons and moments and experiences that shaped you. I think it's hilarious that with this entire show, we've had some challenges, we've had some distractions, some noises, but that's life. And I think it's awesome to see you in great spirits and be so easygoing about it, and just kind of rolling with it. And that tells me the kind of person that you are: tough on the inside, resilient, ready to roll. So
thank you.
Yes, of course. So, okay. So now you've told us about the fight you're most proud of. Now, what's the fight you would do over if you could? Would it be the Masvidal fight? Because everybody wants that big name.
Masvidal, Niko. And it's not even that he has a big name. It's just, I thought I outstruck him. I did enough to win the fight. So Niko Price, Neil Magny, any of those fights that I lost. I want to get a feather in my hat also, So, and again, it's nothing disrespectful. I respect every single one of those guys, but I would like to get a win and put the notch there and say, hey, just beat me again. Prove that it wasn't a fluke, or prove that it was just your night. Because that's the thing about fight nights, just like football or baseball. Anything can happen on any given night. It's just who has the better night is all, So
Yeah.
any of those fights, I feel I can win 7 to 10 times, 10 to 10 times, 9 to 10 times in any one of those matchups. Charles, who was it? Oliveira. When I fought him in Vegas, I landed the illegal knee. People didn't realize I broke my foot in that fight, and I still took a fight 5 weeks later because I wanted to go down and fight him. I didn't want to sit there and say, oh, I shoulda, woulda, coulda, and I have those injuries, but you don't get no respect for that stuff. You don't get respect for fighting through injuries and stuff. And, I think some fans need to take that into consideration. You have a bad night, so I wish we could all be beautiful every single day, but sometimes, you gotta put the makeup on the bruises, it happens.
Yeah, that's true. Fights are, fans are not forgiving when it comes to injuries. In fact, I think when a fighter mentions that, they took a fight while injured, it's seen as an excuse. But like, that's not fair. It should just be an acknowledgement. It should be like, hey, I still went in there and I had all this going on with me. So I'm with you on that. I think I would like to see more respect in the sport. I'm personally not a huge fan of shit talking to one another, but I understand that it sells tickets. And I think that there's a large demographic that's really into that. And that's what draws them to the sport. So I get it. But it would be nice to see the fans be more supportive, because it's really hard getting out there and doing what you do. And then not having job security at the end of the day too,
Right. I used to watch a lot of Pride back in the day. And even when my wife went and fought in Japan, because she fights also, or she used to, when you're in Japan and they'll be transitioning for arm bars, they get in an exchange, they're clapping and they're oohing and they're awing. You don't hear booing and stuff like you do here in America, so
yeah,
a lot more respect, the samurai warrior spirit. I think we could take, a little bit of learning from that type of criteria or from that type of lifestyle, or I heard one guy one day, and one of the worst things I heard was like, bite his ear, grab him by the balls. It's like, whoa, dude, like it's a sporting event, but people also say that it's not a sport. So I especially this year, people are just too mean to each other. And we're talking about punching people in the face, but it doesn't mean I don't like them. It just means that we both signed up to get paid.
Yes.
Fair, right?
Yeah.
So, I think common courtesy, like for example, last week, I think I was at the grocery store. I was driving by. There was a big old long line. You have to stand in for the COVID deal. And there's like 4 or 5 older folks that, are like my grandparents' ages, standing in line, and people aren't letting them to the front of the line. Like, go out of your way, let them up there, You get all these people talking about, oh, we need to think about one another. But even recently, when we got locked down, people are running to the stores, buying up everything, buying up toilet paper. It's a respiratory disease, y'all, or infection. Like, why are we buying toilet paper and all of it?
Yeah.
Just stop caring about one another and, holding the door for simple folks. Don't get me wrong. I've held doors for people, and when they don't say thank you, you want to immediately grab them and put them back in and shut the door. But you're like, maybe they got something on their mind, maybe they're going through something today. So you try to find the reason for the politeness not being there, but politeness is a lost art. It's gone, and I think we're losing that with COVID. We're losing the ability to communicate and talk to one another. And damn, just the election in itself has drawn such a divide with one another. And it's like, damn, y'all, just because you have different views does not make you the enemy. It's just, we just think differently. And that's what's great
People
about
are losing friendships too. Yeah.
Yeah. Friends and family over 2 guys that don't even know our names.
Right.
And technically there was like 4 people on that electoral ballot. 2 of them, we didn't even know who they were. But we hate one another based on having disagreements. And I don't understand why it's gotten like that. That's why we were created. If you believe in God and God's image, we're created to be different, opinionated, and our opinions aren't always right. We want them to be. We hope they are, but they're not. So
exactly. What insights do you have? What would you like to see for 2021?
I would like to see us respect one another and respect our neighbors. And I'm one of the worst way that I got a couple of neighbors that I don't like. But at the bottom line, they are our neighbors. We need to give high fives and hugs because we are in this crisis together. And without one another, we are alone. We have to figure out how to make it work. So salute to everybody, high fives to everybody, and let's hit 2021 with a bang together because we're not going to get through this alone.
Yeah. Okay. Amen to that. Well, thank you so much, Tim Means, for coming on the Jenna Benz Show. Give us your Instagram handle so people know how to find you.
It's @MeansTim on Instagram. Check me out. Come have a conversation with me. Not about religion and politics, not on social media. I'll talk to you about that in person or face to face. But yeah, come chat. I enjoy getting to meet everybody, and I've gotten to meet people from all over the world. It's been an amazing thing. And food for thought. This has been one of the most challenging interviews that I've gotten to do. So we're top of the food chain. We were there. So it's been a fun interview, and thanks for having me.
Wait. You got to tell me why challenging.
Because we've had alarms.
Oh, okay.
Smoke detector alarms. We've had kids getting into the chips. We've had it all. Phones dying.
Ambulances.
We've had a great mixture of curveballs and lemons thrown at us here. And here we are still smiling. So great job. Great job, everybody.